So I saw this at the IllinoisTimes.com website today, and it caught my eye, and it's a great question. Does Blago deserve a portrait in the state capitol? Reading from my next guest piece, and we'll get Scott on here in just a second. If you take a walk on the Illinois Capitol's second floor, you'll see 42 portraits of the state's chief executives. All but one of the state's past governors stare out into the marble hallway. In fact, 3 of the men represented there went to prison. George Ryan, Dan Walker, Otto Kerner. Others, such as William Stratton and Len Small, were indicted but never convicted. And more than likely, there are others who should have gone to prison but were never caught. And then there's Rod Blagojevich. He served 8 years in prison on corruption charges. He is the only Illinois governor to be removed from office. His portrait is the one missing in the State House. This is a lousy practice. So says Scott Reeder, who's a terrific writer for the Illinois Times and joins us now here on WLS. Scott, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Why is it missing, and why do you feel that that's such a mistake?
Well, it's missing for the simple reason that at the time they impeached Governor Blagojevich, they immediately the next day passed a law that said they wouldn't pay for a portrait of Rod Blagojevich to go in the Hall of Governors. And at the time, I thought that was really petty. Of course, emotions were very high at the time, but it's like, hey, he was the governor of Illinois. He was elected twice by the voters. He did some bad things while he was governor, but he did some good things too. But regardless, there's a big difference between honoring somebody and recognizing somebody. To me, if you're going to have a row of portraits of every governor of the state of Illinois, skipping over one because you didn't particularly like him or we aren't particularly proud of him or whatever reason, it's just silly.
As you wrote, I thought this was a great line. The portraits, they're about history, not about canonization.
Yes, exactly. Because let's be very honest here. Illinois has elected very few saints as governor.
Tell us the story of the former Secretary of State. What was his name? It was
Paul Powell.
Paul Powell. You write of him. Tell my listeners one more time what he allegedly did. We're not sure, but it seems a little hinky.
Well, I don't think there's much doubt that he did something bad, but of course he died before he got caught. He was Secretary of State for 2 terms. He was Secretary of State of Illinois, but he was also the Speaker of the House for 2 terms. Very powerful Speaker of the House, probably really the precursor in power to Mike Madigan. And when he died in a hotel room in Rochester, Minnesota, with a woman not his wife of a heart attack, he was. They went to clean out his room, hotel room here in Springfield, and they found $750,000 in cash. Now, mind you, this is the early 70s. Stuff away in shoeboxes in his hotel closet, and then another $50,000 in shoeboxes in his office.
See, I find that humorous, but see, I'm part of the problem because I find it humorous. I should be outraged at that.
It is such a part of Illinois galore. I mean, so this and everybody kind of jokes about it here in Springfield. Oh yeah, Paul Powell, he was such a crook. I mean, in fact, my favorite Paul Powell story was they never could figure out why one of the boxes was full of nickels. And like, what on earth is going on? Turns out what he was doing is the Secretary of State for the state of Illinois. They're overseeing all of the driver's license facilities, all of the Capitol complex, they're the chief librarian for the state. It's a big office employing thousands of people. And he's got this box full of nickels, and nobody could figure it out. What he was doing is they had the concession for the candy bar and pop machines in the Capitol building. And supposedly he was personally shaking down the poor guy who went and emptied out the nickels out of the pop machine in the early 70s and getting his cut.
And I buried the lead here, Scott Reeder, but he also has a portrait hanging in the building. So hypocrisy reigns again. You talked to Blago about the fact that his portrait isn't there. What did he tell you?
He said it will be there someday. He said that he's had a couple of people come forward and offer to pay for his portrait to be put there. He joked about, the big question is, what color will my hair be when they hang it? Will it be white or will it be brown? He said, by the way, it was never black because it was hair dye number 47B or brown sable or whatever, and he joked about that. And of course, they don't allow hair dye in prison, so his hair just went snow white. But my favorite story about Powell was, I took so many people through that building and for tours. And I took my then 19-year-old niece up into the balcony of the House chamber, and we were looking at this picture of Paul Powell. And of course, I told her the story about the $800,000 in cash stuffed away in shoe boxes that he had taken from the state. And she's hearing all that, and then I just kind of reach out and take my knuckles and knock on the frame of the picture. So it's hanging crooked, and I said, that's the way he needs to be remembered in this building. Always a little bit crooked.
Perhaps when Blago finally gets his portrait hung there, and somebody will pay for that, I guess some benefactor will pay for his portrait to be done and hung there. And I agree with you. I think it should be. I don't think anything is gained by whitewashing history. He was a governor, put his portrait up there. But that being said, we should have a little button next to his portrait where you can push it and hear some, or as he would like, all the tapes played.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But, one of the things that I thought was really petty is, one of the things that his wife did, Patty Blagojevich, is she started a wildflower program where they were planted all along highways all over the state of Illinois, and a sign was put up, at these different flower plots that said, this is the Patty Blagojevich project. And as soon as he was impeached, the Department of Transportation under Pat Quinn immediately started taking down all those signs with her name on it. It's like, what did she ever do to deserve to be erased from history? I mean, all she did is be married to somebody. But, I thought that was an example of kind of the pettiness and, sanctimony we see so much often in people in politics.
It's called situational ethics. Situational ethics.
Exactly.
Scott, thanks so much for your time. I thought this is such a great piece. We're going to post it on our social media site so everybody can read it. I didn't have time to get into your trip to Australia, which was a jumping-off point for the entire piece, but that's great. It's a great setup for the rest. But I agree with you. The Missing Blago Portrait, written by Scott Reeder, Illinois Times. Have a great weekend, Scott.
Thank you. You take care.
Play all the tapes.
Hey, beautiful wife.
Hey.
How's my beautiful wife?
Play all the tapes.
I tried to be helpful, and you jumped down my throat.
I don't like you talking in some weird way.
Play the truth.
Whispering. What is this bullshit?
I'll give him credit. The guy takes a beat down, takes a licking, but keeps on ticking.
Well, I had the misfortune of being arrested as a sitting governor at 6 o'clock in the morning. When my little girls, 5 and 12 years old, were asleep, hadn't gotten up yet for school. And then it was a major event, and I was allegedly trying to sell President-elect Obama's Senate seat. It was a political deal. Obama started the whole thing, sent an emissary to me to talk about a political deal. The appellate court eventually reversed the sale of the Senate seat. It was a big lie, but Winston Churchill said a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you were convicted on that, however. So it's a distinction.